don't. And so that's why we do these Sharathons, and we don't do many of them, but when we do them, we put a number together that's realistic and a number that actually will get the job done for us. And it's $5,000, and if you can give bigger than $1, then do so. If you can, at forthepeopleshow.com. You can use any credit card, MasterCard, Visa, Discover, American Express, or your bank card, and you can give securely online. We've never had a problem in the 3 years that I've been hosting this broadcast where people have given donations or monthly memberships. We've never had an issue. And if you become a monthly subscriber, things happen. If you need to cancel, you can cancel at any time. It's very easy to do and easy to sign up on our front page at forthepeopleshow.com. Some of you know me. Some of you have actually heard my story, how I started in radio, but I started in 1986 in New York City at a radio station that was owned by Strauss Communications, 570 WMCA. Still a station that's on the air. It's owned by a different company these days. But that's where I got my start in radio, sweeping floors and running into people like Larry King and the late Alan Combs. Miss him. Great guy, even though he was a liberal, but the nicest liberal you'd ever want to meet. Joyce Brothers was there, Wolfman Jack, Cousin Brucey, these kind of people. And then Mayor Koch. Remember Ed Koch? Yeah, used to produce for his talk show. And Mario Cuomo. Remember that name? Mm-hmm. And learn the art of voice in broadcasting. And my dad was the engineer and more. Kind of had a couple dual titles there, but more or less coupled as the general manager of the station. And man, thinking back to those days working there, it really taught me professionalism, how to really be exceptional. And in radio in New York City, if you were working a job there, I mean, the best of the best. And, you know, second to dead air was your job. You weren't on the board anymore. Everything had to be really tight. You're dealing with the number one market in the United States, and that's where I learned from. And so I was privileged to be mentored, guided by some great people that just gave me the opportunity to learn and follow in a lot of people's footsteps. But they were mentors, and we have a shortage of that. I always say, become a mentor to somebody if you can, to guide somebody, direct somebody. We have a shortage of that. We really do in our society. So I try to help people as I can, and I have a school where I teach people broadcasting and the art of voice acting, and been doing that successfully since 2001 as far as voice acting training. And it's exciting to really be part of other people's lives, to be able to impart yourself in them, kind of duplicate yourself, have like mini-me's running around. Female version will say, you're going to be the female version of Keith Allen, you know, on voiceover, you know, whether it's commercials or narration or of that sort. But it's rewarding work. And just like this radio show, it's a labor of love, and it should be, you know, for any endeavor that you work at, you should put your heart and soul into it. And I put my life savings into For the People, into what I do here. And we kind of overextended ourselves a little bit. We have a few bills, but we're going to take care of those. And that's why we have Sharathon. And I think, you know, to some of the corporations that I work for, that we've raised, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And which is so much easier in some extent, because we were on, you know, big, you know, market radio stations, and we're on big stations now. But you know, it was Christian endeavors, and it seemed like it was easier with religion, easier if we were doing storm damage or something like that, or ravaged, you know, Key West or something like that. But to keep a radio show on the air, I look at National Public Radio, and they raise, you know, millions of dollars. And I know some of you like NPR. This is NPR, National Public Radio. Love it to a certain degree. Some of their commentary, it just drives me nuts. And on the weekend, sometimes when I'm driving to see Chuck, I listen to NPR just to hear what they're doing. And some of their stories just drive me nuts. But, you know, they lean a little further to the left than this palm tree outside my window does. But I listen because I want to understand, what their position is. And, of course, my rebuttal to that. But it's important to hear both sides, especially when you're doing a broadcast, because I love to play the devil's advocate on both sides, and I can do it well. But what I would like you to do well is log on to forthepeopleshow.com. If you could do that right now, forthepeopleshow.com. That's our website. And make a donation and get things kicked off. And I'm just curious what part of this great nation will our first donation today come from? Will it be in New York City? Up in New Hampshire? Boston? Will it be in the Midwest? Will it be out west? Where? Will it be in Florida? Pennsylvania? Idaho, Hawaii, Washington, D.C., wherever you live. And we'll be happy to shout you out, your first name. We won't give your last name. But help us get that zero to something, and we would really appreciate that. So, my introduction to broadcasting was making coffee and then running into all these big names. They were pure magic on New York radio, as you can imagine. Millions of people, in an ADI listening audience. It was just incredible. But to watch them at their best, take phone calls and advocate subject matter, I said to myself, someday I'm going to do that. And I said that when I was 10 years old. My mother, may have spoke something over me. She said, he's got some pipes on him. That's what they used to say in radio, that if you had a good voice, you had some pipes on you. But she almost prophesized over me that I'd actually be in radio, and she's actually one of my biggest fans. She listens to every single show faithfully every single day, and I'm like, how do you listen to your own son 2 hours? But there's a mother for you, right? There's the love of a mother. And she's followed me around. I worked for Salem Communications, Clear Channel Communications, Bonneville, a lot of them. 8 years here, 6 years there. And For the People now, 3 years taking the reins from Chuck Harder, who for over 25 years hosted this broadcast For the People. So here we are in 2017, endeavoring to get on more radio stations, but advertising's key, and we got to get on more stations. I got a call from the NAB saying, you guys got to take out a big ad. And this was the recommendation of a bigwig, but you have to spend some money. And it's just like any endeavor, you have to. But as Chuck used to say, you can't do business with people that don't have any money. And thus, the foolishness, if you will, of Sharathon. It's where we raise money for our cause. And if you think it's worthwhile and you enjoy the broadcast and like the broadcast and it's benefited you, and you can see that being a benefit to America, then I would most certainly appreciate your contribution today at forthepeopleshow.com. Remember, I can't do this without you. It's something that, it's unnerving to a certain degree, because I remember getting my paycheck from corporate America. And worthwhile endeavors, it puts you in this position where you feel vulnerable. And I don't want to say desperate, because I'm not a desperate person. But to bare my soul, if you will, and it's almost kind of being like a panhandler. It kind of feels that way under a bridge. But except I'm on this radio station, I'm on this radio network, and we're panhandling this way. This is a little bit more classier, if you will. But I need your help, folks. Can you do it? I think you can. It's funny. I was looking through pamphlets online on fundraising, and I've done it for other networks, but for this one, and I'm thinking, gosh, is there anything that I'm missing? And they always say you just got to tell your story. You got to share from the heart. And I love America, folks. I am not trying to get rich off this broadcast because it certainly has not bared that much fruit that way. But I am forever indebted to our faithful listeners and loyal supporters who have given what they have towards endeavors, things we've raised, like Chuck's iPad that we were able to get, things like that. Our broadcast studio built 3 years ago when we needed to upgrade and buy some other equipment. There you were. You were there. And now it's time for new people to be able to step in and give. We can't rely solely on just them. We need new listeners that have just started listening to the broadcast. Don't allow, these people to have to write the check that have written it before. And I appreciate them doing that, but I know that there's somebody listening that is able to probably write a bigger check than just an average person because you have the means to do it. And if you can do that, you will make a difference in other people's lives because we provide a platform of not hate, but that of thoughtful news, thoughtful conversation, one that you don't have to be embarrassed about listening with your family. We try to keep it PG, conservative. Sometimes I get racy. No, not me. I try not to. But we really do try to stay above reproach. But I will definitely stand by my values. And I'm going to give it to you straight. And we're certainly going to remain on the air. And we're going to do whatever it takes to get there. And we just need people of like-mindedness that love this country, love their family, love their community, and want the best for this country. And that's what we want. We want a government that certainly does what they say, says what they mean, but protects us. And our wonderful Constitution that we have, that Donald Trump so eloquently spoke about. You should listen to the whole UN speech, by the way, on YouTube, because it's a long speech. It's like over 45 minutes long. Very long speech. But he addressed so many different things, but loved for when he elevated the Constitution and said, this is the longest lasting the world has ever seen. And it's still in play. It still works. And we believe that this broadcast still works, too. In that way, For the People has worked for generations, several decades, and we want to keep this alive and well. So if you've been a fan of For the People and Chuck, I'm asking you to please become a fan for the future, for future generations, to be able to get the news. I was just on the phone with Dr. Pat Choate. He'll be coming on the broadcast soon. We were thinking we're going to get him on today, but it might be maybe later on this week. He's a busy guy. Who's Pat? You don't know the economist Pat Choate? He was the vice presidential candidate for Ross Perot. I've been friends with Pat Choate since 1996 and met him when Chuck was on the air with him. And we've been friends since. And it cracked me up. I said this yesterday. I always call him Dr. Choate, and yesterday he got me, or as it was Sunday, I put him on the phone when Chuck was in the nursing home, and I said, Dr. Choate, good morning. And he says, don't call me doctor, just call me Pat. But he's he's a very smart guy, and I respect his judgment. His books are unbelievable. If you've never read a book that Pat Choate has wrote, you're missed out on so much, because he intelligently lays out a guide for America if we would just listen, and one that's intelligent, one that could work, and he'd have been a great vice president. He would have been a great president at that. And I thought Ross Perot was fantastic back then. Remember, free trade ain't free. Other than the big ears, Ross Perot was very successful. But I think those two were the precursors to Donald Trump, honestly, because the same message that they gave, populist message, is the same that Donald Trump really gave, but just it wasn't ready yet. America wasn't ready. But it was ready for Donald Trump, and I believe you have to owe it to Dr. Choate, seriously, and to Pat Choate. People had to experience this. And we didn't like what free trade did because it hurt a lot of Americans, put a lot of Americans out of work, and now we understand that. But Donald Trump was finally able to get a platform and plenty of votes to get him into the White House. And I, for one, am one grateful American that we finally have somebody. He's not perfect. Have we ever had a perfect president? No, we have